My name is Mia. I'm 47 years old, and this morning when I opened the mailbox in front of my house in Minnesota, I found a thick cream envelope with gold trim. My name, handwritten in the familiar, looping script I know all too well. It wasn't a birthday card. It wasn't a loving note. It was an invitation to my parents' 45th wedding anniversary. I picked it up, my fingers unconsciously tracing the embossed letters. The effort they put into this celebration made me unsure whether to laugh or cry. They could remember every single year of a marriage that began over 4 decades ago, but somehow never remembered the birthday of their daughter. The one who spent her entire youth trying to please them. No phone call, no text, not a cake, not even a single candle. I stood still in the living room, the invitation heavy in my hand, like it was about to fall. Outside the window, snow fell silently, dusting the steps in white. Inside, it was just me and the steady hum of the heater. The kind of quiet I've grown used to. Then the door burst open. "Mom! Oh my God! I'm so sorry!" Amy's voice hit like a thunderclap. She rushed in, tossed her bag on the chair and threw her arms around me. "I totally forgot today is—" "It's okay," I tried to smile. But we both knew it wasn't. She pulled away, her eyes landing on the card in my hand. "Is that from Grandma and Grandpa?" I nodded. "They're celebrating their 45th. And—" I gave a dry laugh. "They want me to give the speech again." Amy froze, her expression darkening. "They seriously sent that on your actual birthday?" "Exactly." "What is it now, how many years?" "Year 27, I said softly. "But who's counting?" Amy clenched her jaw. I could tell she was holding back a string of words YouTube would never approve. "And last year, Grandpa made everyone stand up to sing Happy Birthday to Uncle Tom at their party, but your birthday?" "Grandma said it would diminish the formality of the moment," I shrugged. My phone buzzed. On the screen, Linda. "Mom." I didn't pick up. A moment later, a text from my brother Dan. "Don't give Mom a hard time. Big family meeting tonight. Don't skip it like last year." I handed the phone to Amy. "Don't give her a hard time?" Amy read aloud, her voice sharp. "She forgets your birthday for nearly 3 decades, and he says that?" I laughed, cold enough that even I didn't recognize my own voice. "You know," I said, setting the invitation on the table, "I've been writing those anniversary speeches for 12 years straight. Every word practiced in front of the mirror. I stood in front of hundreds of guests, telling this fairy tale love story, while my own birthday didn't even get a card." Amy looked at me, furious and heartbroken all at once. "Mom, you don't have to do this anymore. Let's go somewhere, celebrate you. They want a speech. Let them write it." I didn't answer right away. Something inside me had shifted. Slowly. Quietly. But for good. "Maybe," I said slowly. "Maybe I should write a speech this time, one for myself." Amy squeezed my hand. "I love it. So, what do you want tonight? Sushi? Steak? Or a giant cake with your name written right across it?" I laughed. "Let's start with a coffee, and maybe an ending for that manuscript I've left unfinished." I turned toward the laptop on my desk. A draft already open. Its title still waiting to be written. I sat in front of my laptop, fingers scrolling through the unfinished chapters of my untitled memoir. Amy had gone out to buy cake and coffee like she'd promised, leaving me in the quiet. The kind of quiet that, strangely, didn't feel lonely today. In the corner of my screen, an old family photo from last year's anniversary was still open. I remembered clearly how I stood at the edge of the stage, the spotlight slicing past me like I didn't exist. In that photo, the one my mother later attached in an email titled Family Highlights, I was just a blurry figure in the background, adjusting my dad's microphone. Front and center stood my brother Kevin, next to my parents, raising his glass. My sister-in-law Jolene, in a blinding red dress, smiled like she was the star of the event. No one remembered that I was the one who wrote the speech that moved the whole room to tears that night. The same speech my mom emailed out with a note that read, "Jolene picked the perfect closing music. Like it was made to end our love story." Jolene picked the music, I wrote the entire story. No one mentioned that part. I used to think maybe they were just forgetful. That I needed to try harder, do more, be more, to be recognized. But after all these years, being the one holding the mic, standing behind the scenes, keeping everything running smoothly, and still being misnamed in the group photo, you start to realize something. Invisibility isn't an accident. It's a choice. Their choice. That same year, I discovered something that finally froze the last bit of warmth in me. Amy was clearing out the garage to make an art nook when she found one of my mother's old boxes. Inside were all sorts of odds and ends, handwritten calendars, notes, old wedding invitations, and a leather-bound planner from 2006. Amy brought us to the living room, flipping through it curiously. She called out to me, her voice slightly trembling. "Mom, you need to see this." I took the planner, its pages yellowed with time. Each month was filled with neatly logged events. Kevin's birthday, Jolene's anniversary, the day Grandma passed away, even the date Jolene's dog was hospitalized. Each marked in red pen or glitter ink. My birthday, March 14th, wasn't there. Not a single note, not even a symbol. I gave a bitter chuckle and gently closed the planner before Amy could see the way my eyes had blurred. "Mom," Amy said, trying to contain her anger. "They didn't just forget. They never remembered." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was afraid that saying it out loud would make the pain too real. They remembered Jolene's birthday, but not the day I was born. They marked Kevin's anniversary, but never once congratulated me when I defended my PhD thesis. When I got the letter confirming the publication of my first book, Finding Inward, my mom didn't call to celebrate. She called to ask, "How many copies do you think that'll sell?" I still remember that skeptical tone perfectly. After that, Kevin and Jolene were gifted a trip to Napa Valley to relax after a busy season. Me? I received an empty photo frame from my mom with a note, "Print a photo of Amy and put it in yourself, Grandma wants to show her friends." I didn't put a photo in. I placed the frame on my desk. As a reminder that, if I didn't put myself into the story, no one else would. And I no longer wanted to be the one writing stories from which I was erased. The doorbell rang. I left the laptop and opened the door. It was Amy, holding a white cake box with red letters piped across the top. "Happy birthday, Mom, the one who deserves to be named first in every story." I pulled her into a hug, the tears coming fast, unstoppable. Not because of the cake, not because of the words, but because in that moment, I knew there was at least one person in this world who saw me, not as the shadow behind the mic, but as the main character in my own story. That night, I stayed up at my desk. On the screen, after hours of thinking, the title finally appeared on the draft. The Art of Being Forgotten, A Daughter's Memoir. Not our family tales like I once planned. Not a sweet short story collection, filled with the kind of cozy memories people expect from a 3-time regional nominee. But the truth. Raw, sharp, and unpolished. Amy had fallen asleep on the couch, still clutching the paper bag holding my birthday gift. She'd spent the whole day running around to find the perfect little silver necklace, engraved with Mom, convinced I'd love it. I didn't tell her I don't wear jewelry. I just looked at that gift and saw all the love I had spent years wishing would come from someone else. Another text from my mother lit up the screen. "Mia, you still haven't confirmed if you're coming to the event. Everyone is waiting for your speech. Please respond soon. Love you. Love you." First time she'd typed those 3 words in 4 years. I didn't reply. I archived the message. Then I clicked on a newly made folder labeled, Truth. I began to write. I wrote about 5th grade, when I read my award-winning poem at the school assembly, and my parents didn't come, because they were busy prepping for Kevin's college acceptance party. I wrote about passing out in college after 3 all-nighters, and the only person who called to check on me was my roommate. I wrote about every speech I'd ever written, every word carefully crafted like stitches on an invisible wound, only to hear my mother praise Jolene for picking a dress that matched the stage lights perfectly. I wrote without stopping. Something was pouring out from deep inside my chest that I couldn't hold back anymore. Not anger. Not exactly pain. Something clearer. A strange, cutting clarity. Near dawn, Amy stirred awake and rubbed her eyes. "You haven't slept?" I turned to her and smiled. For the first time in years, the smile wasn't forced. "No, but I think I just found a reason to stay awake." Amy sat beside me, glanced at the title on the screen. She didn't say anything. She just nodded. "You're not going, are you?" I shook my head. This time, I think I'll let them come up with their own sweet words. "What about the speech?" Amy asked, voice half daring, half hoping. I picked up my phone and opened a new email. Recipients: Linda, Kevin, Jolene. Subject line: regarding the upcoming anniversary celebration. Said, "Thank you for the invitation. I will not be attending this year. I need to spend time with the one person who always remembers my birthday. And write about the things no one ever asked. Wishing you a beautiful celebration. Nia." I hit send. The moment felt like stepping out of a suffocating room I'd been locked in for nearly half my life. 3 hours later, Kevin called. I didn't answer. Jolene left a message. "What are you doing, Mia? Mom is really upset. The whole family is counting on your speech." The whole family is counting. Not one person asked if I was okay. Not one person asked what I needed. Amy wrapped a blanket around me and whispered, "You could write an entire book, you know that?" I looked at the screen. Layered with memories, truth, and all the blank spaces I'd never dared name. "I'm already writing it," I said. "But this time, there won't be any supporting roles." I sent the manuscript on a gray December afternoon, the wind howling through bare branches outside the window, while my heart felt just as empty. The memoir was 196 pages long, every word pulled from moments I was overlooked. Ignored calls, and the fake hugs at family gatherings, where I always brought the cake but no one ever asked if I needed help. I titled the book, The Art of Being Forgotten. No fancy subtitle, no, a healing journey, no, an inspiring story. Just this. Truth doesn't need to be tied with a silk ribbon. I sent the manuscript to 3 different publishers I'd worked with during my self-help book years. 2 weeks later, all 3 got back to me. 1 email, 1 phone call, 1 voicemail that said, "We need to meet ASAP. This book touches on something much bigger than personal." I chose Pine Hollow Press, an independent publisher in Chicago, led by an editor named Naomi Cole, a middle-aged woman who once self-published a memoir about raising her son alone while being shunned by her in-laws. We only needed 1 Zoom meeting to understand each other without saying much. "Mia, I want this book out on January 5th, Naomi said, looking straight into the camera. "What's that date to you?" I paused, then replied, "That's my parents' 45th wedding anniversary." She raised an eyebrow. "Coincidence?" I shook my head. "A coincidence they created all my life. It's time I returned the favor." With memories of my own. The book moved into editing faster than I ever imagined. Naomi didn't cut much. She said what I'd written wasn't literature, it was a wound, still bleeding. They kept everything. The part about the family photo where I was blocked by a bouquet. The time I gave a speech while running a 103-degree fever. The moments my mother told me, "If you weren't so sensitive, Maybe the family would love you more. Every proofread page felt like peeling off an old layer of dead skin. Painful, but necessary. Then, the press release went out. Coming soon, The Art of Being Forgotten, a fearless memoir on emotional neglect inside the American ideal family. That same day, Jolene's email popped up. What the hell are you writing? I didn't respond. Kevin called. I declined. My mother left a voicemail. Over 2 minutes long. Her voice barely holding together. Mia, you're making things up. You're tearing down everything this family worked for. Who are you trying to ruin? What are you doing? I just don't understand. Why would you choose this? I listened to the message 3 times. On the third, I shut it off when she said, "You can write about anything, just not our family." Funny. I remember her saying once, "Write whatever comes from your heart." Apparently that only applied when I was writing praise-filled speeches about their perfect marriage. The launch date was confirmed. The cover, plain black, my name and the title embossed in silver. No images. No logos. No face to distract from the words. Naomi sent me 5 early copies. One I kept on my desk, one I gave to Amy to keep in her backpack, just in case Mom loses courage. 2 I mailed to old friends, the ones who cried with me in a bathroom stall, after Thanksgiving dinner, where I was scolded for wearing black. The final copy I wrapped carefully. Labeled, "To Linda and Jacob, Spencer." I wrote by hand. I hope this time you'll read what I wrote. No need to read it out loud. Just read it with your heart. I mailed it straight to their house, the suburban Madison home with the white picket fence and the sign that read, "Family is everything." Amy said I should sign it. Fired again. Because they'll recognize my handwriting. And they'll have to ask themselves, who is this girl that wrote something like this? The answer? She's the one you never really saw, even after living under your roof for over 40 years. I sent the manuscript on a gray December afternoon. The wind howling through bare branches outside the window, while my heart felt just as empty. The memoir was 196 pages long. Every word pulled from moments I was overlooked, ignored, calls, and the fake hugs at family gatherings, where I always brought the cake but no one ever asked if I needed help. I titled the book, The Art of Being Forgotten. No fancy subtitle. No, a healing journey. No, an inspiring story. Just this. Truth doesn't need to be tied with a silk ribbon. I sent the manuscript to 3 different publishers I'd worked with during my self-help book years. 2 weeks later, all 3 got back to me. 1 email, 1 phone call, 1 voicemail that said, "We need to meet ASAP. This book touches on something much bigger than personal." I chose Pine Hollow Press, an independent publisher in Chicago led by an editor named Naomi Cole, a middle-aged woman who once self-published a memoir about raising her son alone while being shunned by her in-laws. We only needed 1 Zoom meeting to understand each other without saying much. "Mia, I want this book out on January 5th, Naomi said, looking straight into the camera. "What's that date to you?" I paused, then replied, "That's my parents' 45th wedding anniversary." She raised an eyebrow. "Coincidence?" I shook my head. "A coincidence. They created all my life. It's time I returned the favor. With memories of my own." The book moved into editing faster than I ever imagined. "Naomi didn't cut much talk, you said." What I'd written wasn't literature. It was a wound still bleeding. They kept everything. The part about the family photo where I was blocked by a bouquet. The time I gave a speech while running a 103-degree fever. The moments my mother told me, "If you weren't so sensitive, maybe the family would love you more." Every proofread page felt like peeling off an old layer of dead skin. Painful, but necessary. Then, the press release went out. Coming soon, The Art of Being Forgotten. A fearless memoir on emotional neglect inside the American ideal family. That same day, Jolene's email popped up. "What the hell are you writing?" I didn't respond. Kevin called, I declined. My mother left a voicemail over 2 minutes long, her voice barely holding together. "Mia, you're making things up. You're tearing down everything this family worked for. Who are you trying to ruin? What are you doing? I just don't understand. Why would you choose this?" I listened to the message 3 times. On the third, I shut it off. When she said, "You can write about anything, just not our family." Funny. I remember her saying once, "Write whatever comes from your heart." Apparently that only applied when I was writing praise-filled speeches about their perfect marriage. The launch date was confirmed. The cover plain black, my name and the title embossed in silver. No images, no logos. No face to distract from the words. Naomi sent me 5 early copies. One I kept on my desk. One I gave to Amy to keep in her backpack, just in case Mom loses courage. 2 I mailed to old friends. The ones who cried with me in a bathroom stall after Thanksgiving dinner where I was scolded for wearing black. The final copy I wrapped carefully. Labeled, "To Linda and Jacob Spencer." I wrote, by hand. I hope this time, you'll read what I wrote. No need to read it out loud. Just read it with your heart. I mailed it straight to their house. The suburban Madison home, with the white picket fence, and the sign that read, "Family is everything." Amy said I should sign it. I didn't. Because they'll recognize my handwriting. And they'll have to ask themselves, who is this girl that wrote something like this? The answer? She's the one you never really saw, even after living under your roof for over 40 years. The next morning, I was making coffee when the doorbell rang. Loud, sharp, like a hammer striking buried memories. I opened the door to see Jolene, lips pressed tight, cheeks red from both cold and fury. "We need to talk. Now." Her voice was colder than the snow outside. I stepped aside to let her in, without a word. Amy, still groggy, emerged from the bedroom and froze when she saw Jolene. The air in the house thickened instantly. "My mom called me all night," Jolene began. "She was crying. I've never seen her like that." "Oh?" I calmly poured coffee into a mug. Jolene slammed her hand on the kitchen counter. "Mia, you're playing with fire. If that book launches on January 5th, do you know what's going to happen? I'm guessing the truth gets read." I didn't even look up from the steam rising from my cup. "The family will fall apart." Jolene gritted her teeth. "Your mom won't survive this, and Kevin—" "What about Kevin?" I cut in. "You mean the man who stayed in his room while I passed out in the bathroom and no one called an ambulance?" Jolene went silent. "I didn't come here to fight. I came to warn you. They're desperate, Mia. Your mom? She's called a lawyer. Kevin's talking to Dad about taking this to court, trying to block publication." I let out a small laugh, not loud, but sharp enough to make her flinch. "They can't stop me from telling my own story. There's no such thing as a legally binding family honor clause." "But it can destroy reputations, Mia," Jolene snapped. "You're airing dirty laundry. You want to ruin your parents' names? What about forgetting my birthday 27 years in a row? Pushing me out of family photos and calling it a bad angle?" Amy stepped closer to me. Her voice was calm but cut like glass. Jolene. If the family didn't want to be exposed, maybe they should have treated my mom like actual family, not just a shadow by the camera." Jolene turned to Amy, chest rising. "You're young. You don't get it. Some things should stay private." "The only thing that's been kept private in this family is my mom's dignity," Amy said flatly. Jolene was silent. After a moment she sighed, pulled out her phone, typed a few lines, and shoved it back into her coat pocket. "I tried," she muttered, eyes still burning. "Don't say I didn't warn you." When she left, I collapsed into a chair, feeling both relieved and drained. But less than an hour later Kevin called. "You really think this is the right way, Mia?" His voice came through the speaker. I turned it on so Amy could hear too. I think telling the truth is the right way, I said. You're scaring Mom. And Dad. He says you're destroying everything we've built. I gave a bitter laugh. We? Kevin, I was the only one without a seat in the 40-year anniversary photo. I gave this speech, and then got pushed out of frame so your wife could have a solo shot with Mom and Dad. Stop playing the victim, Mia. Everyone gets overlooked sometimes. For 27 years? Silence. What do you want? He asked, his voice low. I don't want anything. I just don't want to stay silent anymore. Mom's thinking about canceling the party. Grandpa will lose it. They might cut you off, Mia? Then for once, they'll be consistent with how they've treated me for the past 40 years. I hung up. My hand trembled a bit. But my heart didn't ache like before. That evening, my mother showed up. No knock. No text. She just stood there in a fur-collared coat, clutching a folder. You're writing things that aren't true, she said without a greeting, ignoring Amy reading nearby. Not true for whom? I asked. For the truth. Do you want to know the truth? I stood, staring straight into her eyes. The night I graduated high school, the family celebrated Kevin getting into an Ivy League school. I had to take a cab home alone. When I miscarried, I called you first, and you told me to talk tomorrow because you were throwing Jolene's birthday party. She took half a step back, face paling. Mia, don't turn this into a book. It's already written, already printing. And do you know the funniest part? I opened a drawer, pulled out a galley copy, and laid it on the table. You were the one who taught me how to write, remember? My mother stared at the cover. Her hands trembled, but her voice remained ice. You'll regret this. Not as much as I've regretted staying quiet for decades. I closed the door behind her before she could say another word. 2 days after the anniversary night, I was invited to appear on Good Morning America. Amy sat backstage, holding a hot Starbucks cup, eyes fixed on my every move, like she was trying to pass her steadiness into me. Mia Spencer, author of The Art of Being Forgotten, now topping Amazon's Memoir chart in under 72 hours, the host smiled. Your story has sparked a national conversation about silent pain in picture-perfect families. I nodded lightly. I never thought I'd say this on national television, but I didn't write this book to expose anyone. I wrote it to end the silence that lasted half my life. The footage cut back to the studio. After the interview, I received nearly 400 emails from readers within 24 hours. Many were middle-aged women. Some were men who had never dared admit that their families had hurt them just for not fulfilling their role. Then, something I never expected happened that Tuesday morning. I was watering plants in the yard when a silver car pulled up. My father, Jacob, stepped out, holding a small cardboard box. Hi, sweetheart, he said, his voice rough from the cold, and something else I couldn't quite name. I didn't invite him in, but I didn't close the door either. He handed me the box. I finished the book, he said. Took me 2 nights. 1 glass of bourbon per chapter. When I got to the college graduation chapter, He choked. I felt like I deserved to be punched in the face. I said nothing, just looked at him. My father lowered his head. The first time in my life I'd ever seen him without that usual proud stance. In the box is, he paused, a silver bracelet I bought for your 16th birthday. I never gave it to you. I kept it. Because I thought you'd never feel pretty enough to wear it. I opened the box. The bracelet was still intact, glinting in the morning sun. I never wanted anything except for you and Mom to see who I really am. I see you now, he said quietly. And I know I'm late. That's when I cried. Not loudly, but for real. Then came a text from Jolene. Are you free Thursday? I'd like to talk. About me. Not Mom. I agreed to meet. We sat in a small cafe by Lake Michigan. No high heels. No heavy makeup like usual. I was jealous of you, she said bluntly. I always thought you were weak, but it turns out you had the guts to do something I never dared. I stayed quiet. I told Mom, I won't keep covering for her. I need to own the part I played in hurting you. She pulled a green leather notebook from her bag and opened it. I've rewritten the history, Jolene said. Every birthday, every memory I missed. I wrote it all down, in order. I call it the Calendar of Redemption. I couldn't believe I was hearing this from her, but in her eyes that day, I knew she meant it. The next day, my mother called. She didn't cry, she didn't yell. Just said softly, I'm working on something, can you come by? I hesitated. But I went. The house looked the same. Tidy, orderly, white orchids on the dining table. But on the coffee table sat a new leather journal, opened, filled with neat handwriting I knew by heart. My birthdate. Mia Spencer, born January 5, 1977, was marked in red ink. Next to it, a note. 1989, forgot gift. 1995, no cake. 2002, skipped for anniversary. 2024, skipped for anniversary. 2024, wrote a book. I read the truth. I said nothing, just sat down and turned to the next page. Each page was a milestone my mother was trying to rewrite, not to erase guilt, but to remember. To stop forgetting. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. But I hope, someday, you'll read these lines and see I'm learning to try again. I hugged her. Not out of politeness, but from something real. On my desk now sits a new photo frame. Not one where I've been cropped out. A picture of me, Amy, Jolene, Dad, and Mom. All of us standing together, not because we had to. Below it, a handwritten caption by Amy. Real families aren't perfect. But at least, they've started to see me. 1 month after the memoir's release, on a misty Wednesday morning, I got a call from my mother. Are you free this afternoon? She asked, her voice a little hesitant but clear. I am. Why? I can't. I want to invite you and Amy for tea. Every Wednesday. I'm thinking of starting a weekly family tea, just to see each other, no occasion needed. I went silent for a few seconds. Not because of the invitation, but because of her tone. For the first time, I heard my mother speak to me without demands, without manipulation, without masking awkward tenderness behind polished composure. I'm making lemon cake, the kind you liked back in 3rd grade. I still have the handwritten recipe. In the new calendar. I smiled, with a relief deeper than I expected. The first tea gathering took place at my parents' house at exactly 3 p.m. The kitchen was filled with the scent of jasmine tea, and the lemon cake was served on a faded blue ceramic plate, not the fancy porcelain reserved for guests, but the old dish I used as a child, with chipped dandelion edges. Amy took off her coat and walked straight to her grandmother. Thank you for the invite. My mother smiled, a little awkwardly. But she hugged her back, genuinely. Jolene arrived later with a bouquet of white daisies. She looked tired but peaceful. I've moved all my Wednesday morning meetings, this is now sacred time, Jolene said. Then came my father. He placed a small box on the table and smiled. A gift for Amy. Congrats on being selected as a teaching assistant for the creative writing class. Amy's jaw dropped. How did you know? Your mom told me, and I listened. I realized that kitchen was no longer a showroom of perfection. It was a place where we could breathe, speak, and be remembered. We stayed at the tea table for 2 hours. No one mentioned the book. No one brought up the past. Everything seemed to settle into the air, like rain soaking into dry soil. A week later, I received a handwritten letter from Marlon, my cousin who once sided with the family core. It was written in blue ink. Dear Mia. I read your book. I'm sorry for the years I stayed silent, thinking that was neutral. It was complicit. I hope you'll let me start over, maybe at one of those tea gatherings someday. Marlon. I folded the letter and placed it by the window. I didn't reply right away. But I knew someday I would. The next Wednesday, Amy brought homemade ginger cookies. My dad brought a handwritten card congratulating me on the French edition of the book. Jolene shared that she had started therapy, digging into childhood wounds she used to deny. I realized I was always the one responsible for keeping up the perfect image, she said. And I hate that. I don't want my daughter growing up thinking being agreeable is the way to be loved. I said nothing. I just placed my hand over hers. A quiet gesture. Enough. My mother, sitting across, carefully poured tea into each cup. When it came to mine, she paused. I made an eye doctor appointment for next week, I think. It's time I got glasses, so I can see clearly. Everyone at the table laughed, but I knew. That was the most intentional thing she had said to me since I was 10, sketching in the living room while being entirely ignored. One late evening, while I was revising my next manuscript, a novel inspired by things I once witnessed but never dared write down, my phone lit up. A message from my mom. Next Wednesday, I'm going to try making raspberry-filled chocolate cake. You once said it tasted like spring. I want to understand that spring. I stared at the screen, my hands still on the keyboard. When I started writing The Art of Being Forgotten, I didn't hope for forgiveness. I just wanted to be seen, in every sense of the word. And now, every cup of tea, every scribbled date in her calendar, every hug from my mother, every story Jolene dares to share, every softened glance from my father. Each one is a small piece of what I once believed was impossible. I stepped out onto the porch, the March breeze brushed my cheek. In my hand was a photo taken last week. Me, Amy, Mom, Dad, and Jolene, sitting around the tea table, our hands touching, our eyes facing the camera. This time, I wasn't outside the frame. I was at the center. Not because I forced anyone to look, but because they finally learned not to look through me anymore. Mia's story proves that prolonged silence is not forgiveness. It's an unhealed wound left untouched. Speaking the truth, even when it hurts, even when it disrupts your mother, is not breaking a family, but offering it a chance to heal. Mia didn't just reclaim her voice. She helped those who once overlooked her learn how to truly see, listen, and love. Sometimes, the journey to being seen begins with rewriting your own past. What do you think about Mia's journey? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more touching stories about family and life.